epinephrine, Mike, and we'll give him some epinephrine. We gave the patient several rounds of medications, and we got no response. At that point, we felt that the patient probably would not survive. He remained in a flat line with no pulses and never was breathing on his own.
It had been more than 30 minutes since John's heart stopped beating.
We'll have a systole and a monitor. Okay, let's go to the bicarb. Go ahead with the bicarb. Here you go. 4, 5.
Approximately 2 minutes from arriving at the emergency department, our base hospital physician gave an order to give the patient sodium bicarbonate, which was a deviation from our protocol.
5. Okay, Mike, bicarb's on board. 4, 5. We have a normal sinus rhythm and a monitor. Check pulses, CPR. Check pulses.
Apparently, the base hospital physician knew what lightning did to the heart, but I don't think that any of us felt that he would survive this event, even though he did have a pulse when we delivered him.
35-year-old John Endicott was taken to the University of California San Diego Medical Center and put under the care of Dr. David Hoyt.
John was in a deep coma. His CAT scan suggested that his injury was due to the fact that he had a cardiac arrest. His EEG also suggested that he was not likely to make any useful recovery.
The doctor finally came out.
Hi, I'm Dr. Elston.
And they worked on him for over an hour.
I've tried everything, but I don't think he's going to
And the first thing he did was he gave me my husband's wedding ring.
ring.
And
Very sorry.
then they started to tell me that things were not very good.
Usually
Somehow,
like this, people don't
I felt I was in,
gonna give up.
they were talking to someone else, but he was looking at me in the eyes saying, your husband's going to die. I would go in and talk to him or hold his hand. I always touched him. I was always talking to him, telling him what was going on, that I missed him and loved him. I used to sing to him, Johnny Angel, Johnny Angel. But I never gave up hope.
We try hard to balance what we call hope with the concern that we don't want to certainly prolong unnecessary suffering. What we did with his wife is talk to her to allow her to participate in the decision as to whether we should continue support or consider backing off.
They were talking about if he lived, he had a 1% chance of becoming a functioning human being. That's like somebody that can get out of bed and that's about it. Has no thought process at all.
After 2 weeks, amazingly, Lynn did see a change in her husband's condition.
Just walked right over to him and leaned right down to him and gave him a kiss right on his lips. And he kissed me back. So I did it a second time, just to be sure that I wasn't imagining things. And he kissed me back a second time. That's when I knew. There was someone in there and he knew who I was.
5 weeks after being struck by lightning, John was released from the hospital. But it took 20 months of speech, physical, and occupational therapy before he could return to work.
I'm happy to be alive. I want to thank everyone who saved my life. Without their help, I wouldn't be here today. I hope someday I can repay them.
He's got short-term memory problems right now. And sometimes his reactions are a little slower than they used to be. But physically, there's no scars or any other problems. He's just not quite as strong as he used to be, but through time, that will come back. It truly is a miracle that he is alive.
The most amazing thing to me about John's recovery is the fact that we were wrong. We had lost hope. His wife did not. She saw us through that extra week, and that made the difference. And I think there's no question that had she lost hope at that point, that there may have been a different outcome.
It's wonderful to have him back. We'd like to go on someday, maybe even have a family. we just are glad to be back together. Scott Cohen, the 911 operator, didn't do just what he had to do. He made a judgment on his own to give me that CPR information. And my husband is alive because he made that decision. I could never tell him thank you enough.
I've been a dispatcher for 9 years, and this last year is the first year that they've let us give these pre-arrival instructions. A lot of people are under the impression that when they call 911, that the people on the other end are going to be able to tell them exactly what to do, CPR, mouth-to-mouth, whatever. But the sad fact is that most fire departments do not allow dispatchers to tell them what to do. There's nothing more helpless as a dispatcher when somebody calls up and they're saying, you know, what do I do, what do I do? And you have to sit there and say, well, I can't tell you what to do because, you know, the agency you work for is worried about getting sued by somebody. It's a call that I'll never forget. It was my first CPR, and John survived. And I really thank the Lord that he's around.
Next,